Well, good afternoon, tubers. This is the Pestleman coming at you again, and I got a quick little discussion I'm going to hold today, basically from an awesome question that Mr. Mike Brooksy, our esteemed compatriot, posted on my channel. And he asked me, he said, Pestleman, this thing here is so deep, why don't you call it a mortar bowl instead of a metate? Quite the astute question, my brother. So here's the way it breaks down to. This dude down there, the big boy, he had monos inside him. And up here, your bowl type mortar have pestles that go inside them. And it's much more, though, than just what their companion tools are. For instance, down here, companion tools for bowls, mortars, portable mortars in this case. Now this story holds true for whether it is your metates or the bedrock metates, which are actually called slicks, or your portable mortars, and then you got the bedrock mortars with just, great big monster boulder with a hole drilled in it. But it's a lot more than what the tools that accompanied them were. It's what the job they actually did was. For instance, you can pretty much think of this type of grinder that you see down here as like a mill. As like a mill that either mills up acorns, or the two main things that went in these guys was on the west coast here, it was all acorns, but there was some various other seeds and berries that were gathered of probably 100 different varieties. But still, the primary job that they did was they made flour or a meal, like acorn meal. And then once you got east of the Mojave Desert, you were, primarily in the corn part of the world where the Native Americans had developed corn. Never made it to the West Coast at all, up until the 1800s. So these guys here were used in making flour or meal, whether it be primarily cornmeal or acorn meal. Whereas these guys up here, portable mortars, think totally different. Don't think milling up corn, making flour and meal from, grain type things. Think up something that is making stew or mashed potatoes, and you're starting with potatoes and all kinds of things. Like there were literally dozens of different things that would get tossed into these guys here and all mushed up together in this awesome stew. Like you could easily have rodents, reptiles, birds, fish, shellfish, dried jerked meats, any kind of oily seeds whatsoever. The Spaniards said about the California Native Americans that if there was a plant or bush that made an oily type of seed, they ate it. And berries by the hundreds, and of course they also would throw acorn meal in here in combination with all of the above mentioned foodstuffs. And what they would do is they would just throw some birds, some lizards, if somebody could catch a pocket gopher, he'd go in there and then throw in a bunch of acorn meal and berries and bushes and probably some leaves and stuff, and they'd pound the whole thing up. And, that's what's going on in these guys here, okay? With these big boys down there, you're having almost exclusively grinding back and forth, up and down, that sort of thing. Whereas with these guys over here, you got a little bit of grinding. I'm sure you're going zoom, 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 grinding in a circle, but you're also doing a whole bunch of boom, 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 pounding, crushing, which doesn't really happen so much on those. Those things there are from taking, small meal and making it finer into flour or, acorns. Just to kind of make my point a little bit, like this big guy that you see over here, right? I mean, there's just no way you could have ground back and forth, in a circle with this guy here. What this guy here was used for, this I don't even know if I can stretch back far enough to get this whole whomperdinker in there. This thing here was tied with a rawhide line to a tree branch, a little bough that would, springy, and it would, bounce back and forth and carry the weight of this thing, so it'd go boom, 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 and they could crush it. And that way it would fall with its full mass of crunching power, but it wasn't near so hard to string together. Now, with this big boy Matati here, he's got a pretty dished out bowl in him. That's, y'all use the word bowl, okay, but really, he is a Matati. And, but, a lot of Matatis, you ended up with a mono like this right here that is just flat, whereas now, when you're looking at the knob end of pestles, the vast majority of pestles, or every pestle I've ever found on the West Coast, have all got your big baseball bat ended knob on the end of the thing that just is just the end of a great big bulbous, almost spherical end on the thing. It's just, it's basically, I think I made the word up, but I call them testicular ends, pestle-like ends. Whereas now, just to make it totally confusing, here is one of the ones from the East Coast. This pestle, they call this a pestle, and it is, but I think it's a pestle that got used like a mono more than a pestle. But I don't know. I suppose you could crush with that, but it would have to be, that's why you're like Brooksy says that most of your bowl-like things that you have back there, or Matati-like things, are like this guy over here, just a more or less unimproved rock, except for like it got a little dished area there where it got worked on. And here's that awesome one that Indy Chief sent me with the little nutter in there. Now I don't know, do you think maybe they stabbed this thing in the ground and used that as a nutting stone, as a little portable nutting bowl? Because it's it's got a little dip in it for sure. I don't know if I can get that or not, but anyway, but back to the subject of matates, the vast majority of the matates are real flat in the bottom. Now, even like this mono here, the edge itself down there is pretty close to flat. Now, the corners have got the rounded, upturned round ends on the corners of it, but that's because, you got to make the turn coming up your rails on this thing here. Okay, so tubers, that's your postcard from the Pestlepile today. Thanks everybody. Have a good one. Hunt lucky.